Hello and welcome back to Something Z, and welcome to What If Naruto at the Three Tails Part 2. Last time on the What If, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi became Team 7, after passing the bell test, and after some time they were sent on a C-ranked mission to bring Tazuna back to his home in the Land of Waves. But unknown to them, the mission was mislabeled, and after a couple of hours Kakashi had to fight Zabuza, with the fight ending with Zabuza dying, and getting taken away by a shinobi wearing a mask. And afterward, Kakashi passed out because he overused the Sharingan. Okay, so now that's out of the way, let's jump into the video in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we begin this what if a couple of days after the fight between Kakashi and Zabuza, and Kakashi just woke up. And when he woke up, he found himself in a room he didn't recognize, and seeing this, he began to get up. But before he could actually get to his feet, he gets pushed back down by a woman who just walked into the room, and she told him that he was brought to Tazuna's house after he got knocked out by his teammates. And hearing this, Kakashi calmed down and he went back to sleep. And a couple of days later, Kakashi was healed enough to get up, and stand with the help of crutches. And when he got up, he got his three getting and brought him into the nearby woods. And after some walking, he told them that he will be teaching them how to walk on vertical surfaces by practicing on the trees around them. And after he was done explaining the concept, the three began to practice, with Naruto and Sasuke failing after the first couple of steps, while Sakura was able to do it perfectly the first time. So the two then continued to train all day by walking up the trees, while Sakura went to the store with Tazuna. But right before Sakura left with Tazuna, she gave Naruto some advice to help him walk up his tree, which did help him somewhat. And by the end of the day, Naruto and Sasuke haven't mastered walking up vertical surfaces, but they have gotten a decent handle on it. And when they were done for the day, they went back to Tazuna's house for dinner. And while they were eating, Team 7 learned about Inari's stepfather, and how he was killed by Gato, and how that event made Inari stop believing in heroes. And hearing all of this, Naruto was inspired since he wanted to prove Inari wrong, so he immediately ran out of the house and he ran into the nearby woods and he began to train again. And he kept trying to walk up the trees until he eventually passed out from exhaustion. And when he woke up, he found someone standing above him, so he quickly got back to his feet. And when he got to actually see what the person looked like, he put down his guard, since she seemed like a normal civilian, since he couldn't see any weapons on them. And after apologizing for waking Naruto up, the two began to talk about why Naruto was in the woods training so hard. And after some time, the person had to leave to finish picking up his herbs, but before he left, he told Naruto that someone is only truly strong when they have something they want to protect. And after he said that, he began to leave. And when the person was out of sight, Sasuke appeared and he told Naruto that they should continue training. So the two then trained until it was night, and by the end of the day's training, they were both able to climb up their trees. And when they were done, they went back to Tazuna's house for dinner. So now we skip to the next day, and when they were ready, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, along with Tazuna, went to the bridge Tazuna was building. And they didn't bring Naruto since he was tired from using so much chakra in the past couple of days, and his body finally gave in. And when Naruto eventually woke up, it was hours after the group left. So Naruto then ran out of the house and he began to run to the bridge as fast as he could, through the woods. But after a couple of minutes, Naruto noticed cut marks on the trees he's running past, and after he noticed them, he noticed that they were leading back to where he came from. So Naruto then ran back to Tazuna's house. So now we jump to the bridge, and Team 7 was currently watching Tazuna work on the bridge. And after a couple of minutes, the group noticed two people in the water next to the bridge. And when the two got close enough, they were able to tell that the two people were Zabuza and the masked shinobi that they saw killed him. And before they could do anything, Zabuza made a thick mist which surrounded the area around the bridge. And when he was done, the two jumped onto the bridge, and they began to fight, with Zabuza and Kakashi fighting again, while Sasuke fought the masked shinobi. And while they were fighting, Sakura ran to Tazuna, and she stood in front of him. And after a couple of minutes of fighting, Sasuke gets surrounded by a dome of ice mirrors. So now we jump back to Naruto, and he just got back to Tazuna's house. And the first thing he saw was Inari running at two thugs with weapons, and his mom was being held hostage behind them. So Naruto then quickly ran in front of Inari and he made 4 shadow clones, with 2 running at each thug, while the real one stood in front of Inari to make sure he didn't get hurt. And seeing this, the thug who was closest to Inari's mom went to slice her with his sword. But when he began to move his arms, one of the Narutos running towards him shot out a water bullet at the thug's arm, which made the sword come out of his hands. Then before he could do anything else, the other Naruto running at him tackled him, and when he made contact, he began to surround the thug with coral, making it harder for him to move. Then the other 3 fought the remaining thug, and they covered him in a coral as well. And after the 2 thugs were securely trapped from the coral, Naruto undid the clones and he grabbed a nearby rope that was on the dock, and he tied them up for extra security. And after he was done with that, Naruto began to run to the bridge again. And when he got there, he saw Zabuza and Kakashi fighting, and Sakura standing by the bridge builder. He also saw Sasuke surrounded by ice mirrors, and thinking that the other 2 could handle themselves, Naruto ran to Sasuke and he tried to attack the mirrors from the outside by shooting out water bullets. But no matter how hard he tried, the ice wouldn't even crack. So Naruto then ran inside the dome of ice mirrors to see if he could break them from the inside, but the second he got in, he was stuck having to avoid ice needles with Sasuke, while still trying to break the mirrors with his water bullets. And after some time, Naruto starts to pass out from using too much chakra, and while Naruto was flickering through consciousness, Haku threw an ice needle at Naruto that would have been a fatal hit. But before the needle hit, Sasuke jumped in front of it, and it hit him instead. And when the needle hit, Naruto was able to wake up enough to process what was going on. And what he saw was Sasuke standing one second, then collapsing the next. And seeing this, Naruto tried to shake him awake, but after a couple of shakes, it was obvious to him that he wouldn't wake up. And based on Sasuke not moving and the amount of blood that was coming from him, from all the wounds he just got, Naruto assumed that Sasuke died because of blood loss. And thinking that, Naruto only felt one thing, and that one thing was rage. And with that rage, he was able to draw out some of the Three Tails' chakra. And seeing that Naruto wanted to avenge an ally, the Three Tails allowed Naruto to take his chakra. And after a couple of seconds of Naruto just standing still, he starts to get surrounded by an orange chakra. But not only did the chakra seem to power up Naruto, it made him change physically as well, with his scleratus becoming red, with his actual eyeballs becoming yellow, and his skin became a bit grayer, and it became harder and more dense. And his back started to condense and harden even more than any other part of his body, becoming a type of shell. And on his shell, spikes started to grow out, and they came out of Naruto's jumpsuit. And seeing Naruto transform, Haku began to throw ice needles out of pure fear. And when Naruto saw this, he began to yell, and with the power of just his chakra, the ice needles got deflected and it hit the ground around him. And seeing this, Haku began to jump from mirror to mirror. But when Naruto was done fully transforming, he ran at Haku. And with the adrenaline Naruto had, he ran at Haku as fast as he could. And when he got to him, he punched Haku in the mask, launching him through an ice mirror, which shattered when he made contact. And when that mirror broke, all the other mirrors broke. And when Haku landed, Naruto ran after him, and he was about to deliver another punch to the face. But when he was about to make contact, the mask Haku was wearing came off, revealing the masked shinobi to be Haku. And seeing this, Naruto stops his attack, and he turns back to normal. It's then that the two talk about Zabuza, and why he means the world to Haku. And at the end of the story, Haku asked Naruto if he's gonna finish what he started. And hearing this, Naruto nodded, and he grabbed a kunai from his bag, and he went to stab Haku. But before the blade hit, Haku swatted the kunai away, launching it out of Naruto's hand. Haku then told Naruto that he would not die to him, and in the blink of an eye, Haku disappeared. And seeing this, Naruto began to look around to see where he went, and after a couple of seconds, he was able to find Haku. He was currently standing in between Kakashi and Zabuza, with one of Kakashi's hands inside of his chest, and it was obvious to Naruto that he was dead. And when Haku's body hit the ground, the fight between Kakashi and Zabuza continued, with Kakashi eventually being able to get the upper hand, and eventually he was able to restrain Zabuza, and in the process break both of his arms, making it so he's unable to wield a sword. And when his arms were broken, the mist Zabuza created began to dissipate, and eventually completely disappear. And when it was gone, Sakura was able to see Sasuke's unconscious body, so she ran to him, and she tried to wake him up. And after a couple of minutes, a group of people start to walk onto the bridge, and when the group looks at the new group, they see Gato with dozens of his goons. And when Gato was a couple of feet away, he told Zabuza that he failed him too many times, and he told him that he was fired. Then Gato kicked Haku's dead body, and seeing this made Naruto mad, not just because of what Gato did, but because of what Zabuza did right afterward, which was nothing. Then Naruto began to shout at Zabuza, telling him how much he meant to Haku, and by the time Naruto was done, Zabuza was in tears, and he asked Kakashi for a kunai, and after a second of thinking, Kakashi agreed, so he placed a kunai in Zabuza's mouth, and when it was secured in his mouth, Zabuza began to run at the group of thugs, and he began to slice at them with the kunai, badly injuring or even killing some, and whenever he got injured from either a slash or a stab wound from a bladed weapon, Zabuza would just keep going with him not stopping, and eventually after around 10 people, Zabuza was able to get to Gato, and when he did, he stabbed him in the gut with the kunai, and he pushed him off the edge of the bridge, which made Gato fall into the water below. And shortly after Gato died, Sasuke woke back up, since he was able to gain enough chakra to wake up. And shortly after Sasuke woke up, the bridge began to get flooded by villagers with weapons, and seeing this, the remaining thugs got scared, so they ran away. And after the thugs left, Zabuza began to succumb to his wounds, so he fell to the ground, and when he did, he asked Kakashi to bring him to Haku. And hearing this, Kakashi nodded, and he placed Zabuza next to Haku. And after a couple of seconds of being next to Haku, Zabuza finally died. And because the person they were protecting Tazuna from was dead, the mission was over and was labeled as a success. And once Sasuke got his wounds healed up, and he was able to rest, Team 7 left the Land of Waves and returned back to the Leaf. And it was from this mission Naruto developed his ninja way. So now we skip a day after Team 7 got back to the Hidden Leaf, and Naruto, after he was done doing his missions for the day, went to train in the woods. And when he was alone, Naruto went to the mindscape and he began to ask Asobu what happened to him on the bridge. And it's then that he learns he can actually harness the chakra of Asobu, and how he can get stronger if he was able to master it. And because of the incident, the seal on Naruto has become weakened, so now he can harness more of the Three Tails' chakra. So then Naruto began to practice harnessing his new chakra, with him starting to get a good grasp on it a couple of days later. So now we skip a couple of days, and the third Hokage just summoned all the team leaders in the Leaf, and he told them about the upcoming exams. And after some talking, he asked Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai about their getting, and whether or not they believe that they are strong enough to even take the exams, which they confidently say that their getting are strong enough. Meanwhile, the same things were happening with Team 7, so Konohamaru was being held up by the collar by some foreign shinobi, and Naruto just tried to run at him to try to save him, but before he got to him, he tripped. And in the end, Konohamaru got saved by Sasuke, who was in a nearby tree. But before the confrontation could become an actual fight, another foreign shinobi appeared, and he apologized for his teammates' rudeness. Then the two walked away, so now we skip to the next day, and when it was morning, Kakashi assembled Team 7, and they said that they learned about the upcoming chunin exams, and Sasuke and Naruto were on board the moment they heard about it, but Sakura, however, felt hesitant to even take the exams. But after some convincing, she decided to take the exams as well. Then after she agreed, the meeting ended, but right before they left, Kakashi told them that the test will be in about a week, so they should meet back here the day before so they can get more information. And during that week, Naruto practiced more on harnessing the three-tailed chakra, but after day 2, he and Asobu were discussing about what they should do for him to get stronger. And while they were discussing, Naruto remembered Zabuza, and how he was able to use water ninjutsu for different jutsus such as creating a sick mist or creating a water prison. And when this came to his mind, he told this to Asobu, which he believed was a good idea. So Naruto for the remaining days began to practice those two jutsus, and by the day of the exams, Naruto has become decent at these two jutsus, with him now being able to create a decently sick mist and a 5 feet radius. And for Naruto to use the water prison jutsu, he needs to shoot out a water bullet, and he needs to make contact with his opponent in the span of 5 seconds. And after he makes a prison, he needs to keep contact with the prison. And Naruto can keep up his initial form for the span of 15 minutes before he feels completely drained. So now we skip to the day of the exams, and Team 7 just got to the exam site. But when they got to where they believed the exams were taking place, they saw that the hallway was full of examinees, wanting to be let into the exam room. And when they looked at the doorway, they saw 2 shinobi standing in the doorway, not letting anyone in. And after a minute of Team 7 waiting for something to happen, a fight starts to happen between an examinee and a person in the doorway. But before it can escalate to an actual fight, a person in a green jumpsuit with a bowl cut jumped in between the two, and he began to calm them down, thus stopping the fight. Then the guy in the jumpsuit locked eyes with Sasuke, and after they did this, the guy walked over to Sasuke and he challenges him to a fight, which at first Sasuke declined. So Naruto, wanting to test the guy's strength, challenges him to fight instead, which he accepted. So Team 7 and the guy walked to an arena not that far away, and even with the help of his new jutsus, Naruto was still easily defeated, and he didn't want to use his initial form since he didn't know what the first part of the exams were. And seeing that Naruto was easily defeated, Sasuke walked over to Lee and he accepted his earlier challenge. But after a minute, Sasuke also gets easily defeated by Lee, even though Sasuke was using the Sharingan. But before Lee could deliver the final blow, a puff of smoke appeared a couple of feet away, and when the smoke cleared, there was now a giant turtle, which, to Team 7's surprise, makes Lee stop in his tracks, and when he lands, he runs to the turtle, and when Lee gets to the turtle, he says he's sorry. But just then, another puff of smoke appeared on top of the turtle, and in that smoke appeared a person that looked like a more grown-up version of Lee, who then in a matter of less than a minute, punches Lee for using a forbidden technique, then began hugging and crying with him. And seeing this, Team 7 tried to leave, but before they could leave the room, the guy noticed them, and they began to talk. And through this, they were able to learn that he was actually the rival to Kakashi, and how he's supposedly physically stronger than him. Then after some more talking, the two leave. And shortly after those two leave, the 3 leave to go to the exam hall as well. So now we skip to the actual exams, and everything we skipped is the exact same as how it took place. So now all the getting taking the exams went to a room filled with desks, and they were placed in a way so they couldn't sit with their teammates. And when everyone was sitting down, the main instructor gets out of his seat and he stands in front of the room. And when he was in the middle of the room, he tells everyone the rules of the exams. And when he was done explaining the rules, the examiners gave all the examinees the test. And by the end of the test, Naruto still hasn't answered a single question, and when there was a couple of minutes left, Hinata, who was sitting right next to Naruto, moved her answer task closer to Naruto so he could see it. But before he could actually get a good look, Naruto stops, because the moment he moved his head, someone behind him was caught cheating, and from that he got scared. So he whispered to her that he was fine, and that he could do it on his own. So a couple minutes later, the main examiner got out of his seat, and he went to the front of the room. Then he told everyone that the test was now mostly over, but then he told them that there was actually a tense question. But before he says what the question was, he says that whoever fails this question will be permanently banned from taking the exams, and that if one person gets it wrong, then the whole team fails. But then he gives them another option, which was if they give up now, they can come back next year. And after a minute, the people that wanted to leave left, and when the main examiner believed that they all left, he tells them that it's time for the final question, but instead of saying a question, he just tells them that they all passed. Because the question was, would they still try, even if it means failing once, then you can fail forever. So now Team 7 has made it to the second phase of the exams, and this is where we're going to leave the what if. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time on Something Z.